welcome back to Mariana Math Books. My name is Mariana and today I am here with my reading plans for Historathon. I'm going to talk about my plans for quarter one and beyond. So I want to discuss a bit of what are my current interests and what I am planning to read, what time periods, what things in particular are calling to me at the moment. First, I should start by mentioning the book that I already read, which is this one, The Portrait of Time by Natalia Villavicencio, and this one is about the extinction of megafauna in the Quaternary period, but specifically megafauna in the South America region, specifically, even more specifically in Chile, in the Atacama Desert in Chile. So the focus of the author is the megafauna, South America's megafauna and the extinction in the Quaternary period. It was super interesting. I'm not going to wrap it up because I'll be here forever, but this one I already read, and yeah, so this is my first Historathon read of the year. If you have been following my channel since I started with Historathon, you know that I have been focusing on Mexican history and therefore also Mesoamerican history. I am Mexican, I am from Mexico, and when Vin invited me to Historathon the first year, I thought it would be a great opportunity to read some Mexican history because I had never had a particular interest, and I think that's because it feels like school. I did a video where I talked a bit about that, about how school impacted the way I viewed history and certain topics, and how I have been super pleasantly surprised by how invested and interested and hooked I am on all of the topics that I thought were going to be boring. I usually was attracted to European history, medieval history, mostly because of my fiction tastes that led me to that path. But I have been absolutely loving focusing on Mexican history and loving all the fascinating, amazing, super interesting topics that I have been reading about. So if you saw my reading goals video, you know that this year I'm kind of having a low buy year, a goal of low buy. I do have certain parameters and certain exceptions and things that I am allowed to buy. One of them being Historathon, because I feel like history books can be so specific that if you're interested in a particular topic, you would have to look for a specific book. But then also, often history books, and especially the ones that sometimes we are attracted to, I know that I am, are printed by smaller presses, maybe university presses or academic focused presses, and those are the really like juicy history books that you want to read, and those tend to have lower print runs. And so if you don't buy it's very likely that if you try to find it later, then you won't be able to, because they are printed in smaller print runs. However, I don't want to just run off and take the exceptions and just buy books, So I wanted to find books on my shelves that could fit quarter one, at least physical books, because ebooks I do tend to buy a bit more nowadays. The good thing about doing that is that you read books that you have been meaning to read for a long time and you haven't gotten to them, and that is the case for the first book that I'm going to show you, that I'm actually currently reading, and I can already see this being a favorite, and that is The Origins of Power in Mesoamerica by Enrique Florecano. I have this older version. There is a newer more practical version, because this is super big and heavy and really difficult to read. You have to prop it up somewhere because it's super super heavy. But yeah, so as the title suggests, this is the origins of power in Mesoamerica. And Mesoamerica, if you don't know, I'm going to put an image of the map. It's that region before the Spanish came, so that is the region known as Mesoamerica. Yeah, this is like the research of the author and his proposal as to how the concept of state formed in Mesoamerica, and how the different states and forms of power were formed. And so it starts from the beginning. The first chapter is the like the mythology of the place and the creation myths, which the author argues are basis for the later foundation of the state. Because as it was in Europe, the rulers justified their rulership based on being like descendants of the gods. I feel like that's common in most cultures. And so it starts with that, the first chapter. And then the second chapter, which I finished, is the chapter of the Olmecs. The Olmecs are the first known state, like as a formed state with a form of government with a centralized power. I mean, there's actually a lot of debate about the Olmecs, but that is what Enrique Florecano argues here in this book. And so the topic of the Olmecs was super fascinating. A lot of new information that I didn't know. And then the chapter that I'm currently reading is about Teotihuacan, which is one of the most influential, if not the most, no, one of the most, because the Olmecs are also very influential, but one of the most influential cultures in Mesoamerica. It was a big military civilization, but it's a big mystery because it's one of those things where the civilization kind of got destroyed and people ran away from the city and it got abandoned. I mean, there is a lot known, but there is also a lot of mysteries, including the form of government. So I barely started the Teotihuacan chapter, but this is going to cover the government style according to this author, because there is debate as to what was the style of government in Teotihuacan. And then the military expansion of Teotihuacan towards Mayan territory. It's super interesting. There's an image of a Mayan king wearing Teotihuacan military garb, which was very interesting to see. It has a lot of pictures, images, plates. It's a super 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 amazing book, and I have been saying that I was going to read this since the beginning of Historathon. Since Historathon first year, I said I was going to read it. I'm pretty sure. So I'm glad I finally got to that one. The next one I have on my shelves is this graphic non-fiction about the history of paper and books. And this is actually an adaptation, a graphic adaptation of a really really famous super super mega bestseller non-fiction book. Then the book is actually translated to English, but I've seen some people in the Historathon Discord read it and not super enjoy it, and I feel like that's because in English it wasn't marketed properly, because it's actually more essay like. And so it talks about the history, but it also talks about like thoughts of the author. And I've noticed that there is something that in English readers don't like, which is a different topic. But so if you're interested in the book and you want to put your perspective into thinking that it's an essay about the history of books rather than a straightforward history, you might enjoy it. So the title in Spanish is The Infinite in a Read, and the title in English is very straightforward. This one in particular is a graphic adaptation. I haven't read the essay. It's a super chunky essay. I haven't read it, and I think that is because I sometimes can be a contrarian by nature, and it is such a big bestseller, and everyone and their mom and their mom's mom and their neighbor has read it. And so I feel like I'm being a bit of a contrarian. I've never been interested in it because it's so popular. But when I saw there was a graphic adaptation and it looks amazing if you see the inside of the book, that I knew that I wanted to get it. And because it starts with, the creation of paper. That is why it's called the infinite in the reeds. Um, it covers quarter one. I'm not sure how much of a time span it has, but at least the beginning of the book it does cover quarter one. And then the final one I'm going to show you, and that is because I do have another one that covers quarter one, and it's super cool, and I really want to read it, and I might read chapter one, but I'm not sure, so I'm not going to show it because yeah, I want to show things just for the sake of showing. I really actually just want to talk about my most assured plans, which, as you know, they change. I always talk about my plans, my reading plans, and then I change them anyway. From this that I have mentioned, the only one that I have started is The Origins of Power in Mesoamerica, right? So the last one is an essay collection, and it's a very unique topic for Historathon, but it's a topic that I find super fascinating, and that is the history of divination practices. Since I started reading tarot, I feel like, I should have guessed that what was going to catch my interest in terms of tarot is the history of it, and the history both of tarot in itself, like when it was created, the historical context, why the cards are like they are based on the historical context, the families that commissioned them, like, okay, that I find fascinating. But then the practice in itself, the practice of divination beyond cards, just divination, interests me a lot. And if you think about it in terms of Mexican history, there part of the history of the conquest is the divinatory practices in the specifically for the Aztecs, because that's like the relevant culture for the conquest, or the most known, I should say. And there were a lot of prophecies about the conquest that were made. And I personally have always felt like the discourse surrounding that shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is to want a divination. Because I feel like most historians don't partake in that, and so I feel like there's a fundamental misunderstanding there, and I find that super interesting. I actually have the most amazing book that I just received, one of the ones I bought, which is specifically about the different prophecies that they were for the conquest in the codexes. Amazing, but I'll show that one when I talk about other quarters. So this one specifically is a collection of essays about a comparative view of divinatory practices in ancient and contemporary times. So there is some history of divination in different cultures. This is called Divine to Act. The subtitle is A Comparative View Between Ancient and Contemporary Divinatory Practices. And I want to tell you the ones that specifically I'm interested for quarter one. So there is an essay about divinatory practices in ancient pharaonic, is that the word in English? Um, Egypt, like the Egypt of the pharaohs. I can never pronounce that word in English. There is one about ancient Mexico. There is one about ancient Japan. that would also be super interesting, the diversity in the divinatory regimes of ancient Japan. A lot of interesting essays in this, so I would like to read for quarter one the ones that are relevant for quarter one, and those are the ones I have on my shelves, like paper books. And then one that I hadn't heard about, and it's a complete impulse, I guess, is one that has been referenced in the origins of power in Mesoamerica, and it caught my eye, and it's called Prehistory. The I can't remember the subtitle. I'll put it on the screen, by Colin Renfrew. I don't know if any one of you has ever read it. Let me know in the comments. It's not super well rated in Goodreads, but I do have a history of liking books that are not well rated. And it is about the, you know, about prehistory, but it goes from the conception of the idea of prehistory. So that one sounds super interesting. I downloaded a sample to my Kindle, and that is the one that I think for my Kindle I will read. There are others that I'm interested in, but I don't think I'll get to them, so I'm not going to mention them. And if I do a wrap up, I'll talk about whatever I read there. And then I'm just going to quickly give you an overview of what I'm planning to read, like broadly, not specific books, but broadly the themes that I'm interested in for the for the following quarters. And hopefully I'll be making videos about the specific books. So for quarter two, I will continue to read about the conquest, which actually I think is quarter three, technically speaking, is quarter three. But okay, so yes, probably I will read some culture that fits for quarter two, maybe Teotihuacan, maybe Maya, but also I will read about the conquest. And I did that last year, where for quarter two I read a bunch of books about the conquest in order to make a video about it in quarter three, which is when it fits. So I kind of want to do that too this year. So I will continue to read about it. I do have a specific book in mind for an ebook that I do have to buy, but then also the book I told you about, the prophecies of the conquest in the Florentine Codex, and I mean a lot of things. Last year I filmed a video about the conquest part 1, and then I never did part 2. And so this year I would like to make part 2 of that video, and if I can do a video of more recommendations, I will. But I do have a lot of books in English, I mean in Spanish, for this year. The book about the conquest that I want to read, though, is in English. So, stay tuned if I read that one and if I recommend it. So that would be quarter two. And then quarter three, again, quarter three is the conquest, where I'm most likely going to be reading more about that in quarter two. I will also read things that fit for quarter two, because I feel like I want to read at least one or two books that fit for the quarter, and then just go my own way. Because for quarter three, I would like to focus on New Spain. That is my current obsession, historical obsession at the moment. That is why I would like to move my conquest reading for before in the year, so quarter two, so that for quarter three I am open to read for New Spain, which does fit with quarter three. I have a lot of books on my shelves that are super cool about quarter three New Spain. I wanted to show you a lot of books in this video, but I don't want to make this video super long, so I'll probably be showing you those books when I talk about other quarters. Um, so I do have some stuff, right? But yeah, New Spain. So New Spain is my main interest for quarter 3, and yeah, as I said, I'm super interested in the time period, in the um, clash of cultures, in the combining of cultures, in the creation of the Mexican identity. Um, yeah, just in general, that whole time period. I have a lot of books, and I will show them to you when it's relevant. And then finally, for quarter 4. Quarter 4 is always a quarter that I feel like I struggle the most with, because I don't usually read modern history, or even modern literature, contemporary literature, in my fiction. But I do actually have a lot of topics in mind that I would like to read about. Firstly, yes, the 19th century. I'm very interested to learn more about 19th century in Mexico. I actually want to read some 19th century Mexican literature, so I am very interested in the 19th century. But then also for more contemporary topics, I would like to read more about the Zapatista movement, and I would like to read about 1968, in particular October 2nd, which was a massacre that happened where the government massacred a lot of students while they were doing a peaceful protest. And it's a big date in contemporary Mexican history that I would like to read more about. So those would be like my interests for quarter 4. And again, when the year progresses, I will be showing you more books that I want to be reading. But I wanted to mention the topics because there might be topics that you might be interested in that you had never considered. This year, as I said, I have a lot of books in Spanish lined up, so I hope it will still be interesting to hear me talk about them. I would like to do more currently reading type videos, Friday reads type videos, where I talk about the content of the books rather than just showing you the books, because I have a lot of them in Spanish. So hopefully that will make it more interesting. I'm personally super excited about them. Every single book on my shelf is super interesting to me. So I'm very excited for this year's Historathon. And yeah, I guess those would be my plans. I have been enjoying watching everyone's plans in their videos and also in the Discord. I don't always participate actively, like right in the Discord, but I lurk a lot in the Discord. So I enjoy seeing what everyone is reading and commenting and stuff. And once in a while, I also comment. So yeah, definitely check Historathon out if you haven't. Super amazing readathon. This is the third year, and we have fun. I will link you the announcement video and the info in the description down below. And yeah, I will see you soon with another bookish video. And in the meantime, I wish you happy reading.